G'day guys, I'm sure a few of you are watching this video off the back of my last update, adding a suspension upgrade onto my next gen V6 Ranger XLT model. This video is all about the process I undertook to get the vehicle engineered in Western Australia with an Ironman 2-inch lift and 33-inch tyres. Now straight off the bat, this engineering process gets pretty involved. So grab yourself a beverage and let's get into it. I'll reference DOT throughout this video, and this refers to the Department of Transport in Western Australia. Heads up, there's going to be a bit of talking from me, but I'll do my best to try and break it down into the steps that I undertook. If at any point you want to skip ahead in this video, check out the timestamps in the description below. So a bit of a disclaimer here. As always, I'd recommend seeking your own advice to determine whether engineering is appropriate for you. You can also reference the Department of Transport guidelines on their website. The information and the process I undertook relates to my personal situation. If you're considering a bigger lift over 2-inch or planning to get approvals on other modifications like engine upgrades, etc., then you're best to discuss this with an engineer direct. I guess the first question you might have is, why did I get my vehicle engineered? And there's a few reasons for this. The first is WA regulations. So in Western Australia, it's actually illegal to run a lift over 50 millimeters. Additionally, you can't exceed your wheel track by more than 50 millimeters. The second is insurance compliance. Now, I'm certainly not providing any insurance advice here, but this is an area you should be aware of. And where you stand from an insurance perspective if you add modifications to your vehicle. A quick read of your insurance PDS will essentially give you the information you need here. The final reason is best practice. I feel it's important to showcase the right way to go about things here. And I do see many YouTubers sort of add a lot of modifications and promote all this on their channel, but they do gloss over, the impact of that from a legal perspective or from a safety perspective. So I wanted to go about that the right way, and this is obviously the full process I've gone to get my vehicle compliant in Western Australia. Now, I wanted to provide both a GVM upgrade and engineered lift in one go. As such, the below steps apply to achieving this combined outcome via my engineer. If you already have suspension fitted with an approved GVM upgrade, your selected engineer will be able to talk you through the options. Essentially, there's slightly less that needs to be done at their side, but much of the same process that I'm about to cover below will apply. If you are adding a 2-inch lift, which would be under 50 millimeters, and keeping your stock tyres, you wouldn't need to go through this process of engineering. However, according to the DOT guidelines, to be fully compliant, you can apply for a simple modification permit via the DOT, and then you'll have to have a pit inspection. Do you just want to add a GVM upgrade and no lift, and you want to keep the same stock tyres? If that's the case, you'd be better off going to a suspension supplier that offers an off-the-shelf GVM upgrade. They'll do all the suspension paperwork for you, and it'll just be a lot easier for you. Some advice before you jump in would be to think ahead. Do your research, determine if you actually need a GVM upgrade or a lift, and as much as you can, try and sort of future-proof that decision. Because if you do go through this process and you get everything engineered and your situation changes and you want to put on heavier suspension down the track, you're essentially going to have to repeat this whole process over again. You are bound to the suspension and the parts and everything that you've had engineered. All right, let's get into it. We'll go through all the steps. So the first step I went through is selecting my engineer. I went with Vlad as we worked together on my Pajero Sport. But if you were considering this, there's a list of authorized engineers on the Department of Transport website. The first thing I did was contact Vlad. We had a discussion about what I wanted to achieve, that being a GVM upgrade and a lift. Vlad then sent me a quote, and I'll detail all those costs at the end of this video. The next step is researching products. So following my conversation with Vlad, I did some research on suspension packages available in market, wheels and tyres. I also checked in on parts availability as that can be an issue. So making sure that your preferred suspension is actually available to install on your vehicle. Once I'd shortlisted the suspension options, I provided details to Vlad, my engineer. I needed to know all the part numbers, and I also needed to be able to obtain spring load rates for the suspension. Vlad then reviewed all the information I provided to determine how much load the suspension can handle. It's definitely a good idea to have a few shortlisted options on suspension, just in case one preferred option is not suitable for a GVM upgrade, for example. So on top of the engineer looking into whether that suspension package is suitable for a GVM upgrade, they'll also need from you the axle load rates on your vehicle. That will determine how much weight the front and rear axle can actually take, and that will influence the GVM figure that can be achieved. If you already have suspension fitted and you're considering a lift process, it would be best to call your engineer and have a chat so they can give you some guidance on kind of how to approach this. So once I had that feedback from Vlad, we landed on the Ironman suspension. And I went ahead and ordered that, and I also ordered the 17-inch ROH Vapor rims on 285 70/70 Mickey Thompson Baja Boss tyres. I went with a +30 offset on the rims as well. So once I've got my suspension and tyres ordered, I need to complete a DOT Modify a Light Vehicle complex engineering form on the DOT website. I'll basically need to put all the information about the lift, what I want to achieve in that form, and also note down Vlad as my engineer to be able to act on my behalf with any kind of questions or queries. Just cuts me out as the middleman so he can speak to them if there's any queries along the process. Once we've completed our light vehicle complex engineering form, we wait from here, and all going to plan, we get back an approval in principle from the Department of Transport. This is essentially received via email, and it'll give you kind of the green light to proceed with the installation of the suspension. You've got to note though, this is not a guaranteed approval, but it's an important step in the process. So once I had my approval in principle, I reached out to Sean at 4x4 Extras to install the suspension on my vehicle. So a bit of a note here on wheels and tyres. Now the lift I installed was close to 50 millimeters, so that's close to the legal limit. Now adding the 33-inch tyres on top of that would take me over that threshold. So if this is something you're going through, the best practice here would be to run your stock tyres on your lift until the engineering process is finalised. Once we've got our suspension on the vehicle, we need to get the vehicle weighed. Now that's the unladen weight. So to do that, I need to go to a weigh bridge. Now unladen is the weight of my vehicle with no passengers and no cargo, and minimum fuel. So approx 10 litres of fuel is ideal. I needed to have the wheels present for that so I could weigh the vehicle with the new wheels on as well. So just in Qdale doing the weigh now. So it's a self-service, which should make it quite easy. Okay, there we have it, 2.54 tonnes. Once I'd done that, I emailed a copy of that to my engineer. Okay, we've weighed the vehicle, and now we need to perform the lane change and brake test. Have you ever wanted to see your vehicle put through its paces on a racetrack? Dunno, probably not, but that's essentially the process here. And this is the most important step in this whole engineering process. Vlad organised the track booking. He provided me with all the information I needed prior to the test. Now I needed the new tyres to be present again so that the test could be performed with the vehicle as it's intended to be once it goes through the engineering process. And on top of the track test, so the lane change test and the brake test, Vlad will also perform an electronic stability control simulation as well. Behind me is the Wanneroo Raceway. It's going to be quite exciting. We're going to do what's called a lane change test, and basically it's a whole process that's involved in getting my vehicle engineered to have a legal lift and also a GVM upgrade as well. There's a few other cars as well going through this process. We've got a heap of weight in the Next Gen Ranger today. That's all part of the simulation with the engineer to make sure that the vehicle is safe changing lanes at speed with weight on board. Probably got about close to 300 kilos of weight in the back of this Ranger at the moment. You've also then got the driver. I've got the long range fuel tank, which is 140 litres. That is full. So we're carrying a lot of weight, and that's important to get this test running effectively. This is all rather exciting, driving down the pit straight at Wanneroo Raceway. So yeah, looking forward to seeing the whole process and how it plays out. All right, just here with Jeff now. Jeff is our driver for the day, and this is my first time actually driving around Barbagallo. Oh, well, no, now it's like Wanneroo Raceway, isn't it? So
yeah, Carco race.
Carco race, okay.
Simulate some lane change testing to prove that the vehicle is capable of high speed in case of an emergency.
Yep.
Kangaroos, road drivers. The car is safe to
change under load. Does this feel much different than the last car you were just driving?
No comparison, to be honest. While you're in the car, I'll run you through the lane change area, test area.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll be going through it slower, obviously, insurance reasons. Coming to turn 7.
This is the famous corner the V8 supercars normally go into the gravel.
So I'm there.
So we're going straight now, which is the lane change area. There's a set of cones here ahead of us. And I guess you're going to be doing this at high speed, but basically simulating going through the cones. There you go.
And then braking into the corner. That was at 65 kilometres per hour.
Okay.
So we'll be getting up to 100 kilometres now.
That's my turn, is it done?
Yeah. See if you can get on 2 wheels.
I'm not driving, am I? Let's give it a try there. Yeah. Okay, we're going for 100 kilometres. I'll ask you a quick question, Jeff. So how did it sort of drive? You do this all the time, but feel okay on the road in the test?
Yeah, the Ford Ranger's bloody good. They're just a well-balanced car.
Yeah.
I'm a Holden, I'm a Chevrolet man,
okay,
but for a Ford they're pretty good. No, very balanced. Braking-wise, they're just fantastic. Suspension certainly helped on here for sure.
Yeah.
I've driven a couple without any suspension upgrades, and
notice the difference.
It's a very good package you have here. So.
Yeah, well, thank you.
We'll do a bit of a fade test around the track.
Yep.
So we're just going to fade the test, and we're going to do another run here.
Vlad and Jeff are now going to simulate some brake testing. So they're going to do a series of quite aggressive brakes, essentially to get some brake fade happening. They'll know then that the brakes are capable of handling the extra GVM load that we're looking to get added to the vehicle. We're all done now at Wanneroo Raceway. Done multiple tests. We've done the speed lane change tests, we've done braking tests. So Vlad and Jeff are both really happy with the vehicle and the way it performed. We've done the lane change test and my vehicle went through with flying colours, which is great. So Vlad then compiles his engineer report. This is quite a detailed report covering everything that the Department of Transport needs to know to be able to authorise your vehicle. Vlad then compiled this information and submitted it to DOT direct. So we finally got our approval letter from the Department of Transport, which is amazing, but we're not done yet. There's one more step, which is going over the pits. Prior to getting your vehicle inspected at the pits, you need to apply for a modification permit. And this can be done on the Department of Transport website. Pretty simple process, and you can pay online. Just have that with you when you go along to your inspection. And there's nothing stopping you doing that earlier in the process as well. So it's now time to book in your vehicle for an inspection. You can get a list of inspection centres on the Department of Transport website. Then you can go with your preferred inspection centre and book a time with them direct. It's now inspection day, so you're going to want to take along all your letters and modification permits, etc. that was emailed to you from the Department of Transport. and also a copy of your engineer's report. You'll get all this on an email from the Department of Transport. Just like the other steps, like the lane change test, etc., you'll need your new wheels and tyres on the vehicle for this inspection. It's a bit of a warning here, this is a full vehicle inspection, so they're going to check over everything on your vehicle, not just your lift and suspension. So, you know, they'll check over your tint, they'll check your wipers, everything. So if anything isn't right, it'll get flagged at that inspection and you'll have to get it remedied. So we're approved. We got the green light at the pit inspection, which is amazing. So now we've got this expensive piece of paperwork, but obviously I know my car is compliant and road legal, which is amazing. Okay, you're probably keen to know how much did this cost. It's certainly not cheap, but as you know, I see it as part of the overall suspension, wheels, tyres spend, and I feel it's just part of the cost to build the vehicle into what I needed it to do. And hopefully it'll be a long-term thing for us, for me and the family to enjoy. Okay, I'll start with the costs. So the engineering fees all up was $2,400. So that's inclusive of your lane change test, your brake test, the ESC test, all the paperwork, back and forth, etc. So that is the bulk of the cost there. So you've also got Department of Transport fees. I paid $73.80 for the modification permit. Finally, you've got your vehicle inspection. That was $181.90 to get that checked over. I'll just cover off now my new vehicle details post this engineering process. My new tare weight for the vehicle is 2,540 kilograms and my new GVM is 3,449 kilograms. That's an increase in 220 kilos for the GVM. Some final thoughts in closing. I think I need a bit of a deep breath after all of that. You don't realize until you actually reflect back and you go through it all, but you know, I achieved the engineering process in about 3 months, with the longest period being submitting the Department of Transport light engineering form to getting that Department of Transport approval in principle. That took about 8 weeks just for that process. That's really it, guys. Thanks for hanging on till the end. I know it was a bit of a long one. If you haven't seen part 1 where I actually install the suspension and select the suspension, you can click here to have a look at that. And if you're new to the channel, thanks for watching. If you like this content, please subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one. See you guys.